What's up, everyone? How's everyone doing today? Thank you for joining us for this Mindshare event. Hopefully you were able to kind of sit on a bunch of the other sessions. We had a great session with Devin, who just, his voice kind of soothes me sometimes. It's weird. Then we had our PMs talk about our new recording studio product, which is exciting. And Dasha, who's from Burst, gave a great example of how she's been using recording studio. And I saw in the last session with Drew and Misha and the crew there and Jess that there's a lot of conversation going on. So I'm excited about our conversation here today. We're here to talk about how to leverage recorded video for more impact. And we have three incredible guests who are going to share their experience. So I'll give a few minutes for folks to kind of join before we bring them on. Some just housekeeping things, just as a reminder. This is recorded. You'll get access to this on demand, so do not fear. You'll have the ability to go watch this later on. There is a Q&A section. Hopefully I'm pointing in the right direction over there on the right side. Please go in there. Leave questions for our panelists. Again, these are experts. It's a great time to dig into their expertise and kind of get answers to questions that you may have about video and recorded video. And I'm actually going to open up a poll here just to see kind of what people are currently doing with recorded video. So you'll see the poll come up on the right side or in the little pop-up. Please go into the poll, add in your answers. Again, we want to see what type of video content you're currently using and how you're creating and recording that video content for your marketing purposes. So we'll give a few minutes there. We have some votes coming in. Actually, let me share my screen so you can all see what's happening here. All right, we got some customer testimonials happening for recorded video. We have thought leadership video content happening. Cool. We got a good mix here. Pre-recorded events. That's a big one. I think that's at least our customers talk about often, and Dasha talked about in her session earlier today. A couple of product demos. Cool. It seems like customer testimonials, pre-recorded events, and thought leadership are the winners here. We'll keep this running, so please continue to add your responses to this poll. Maybe I'll ask the experts what their take is on the fact that this is the kind of the distribution that they're seeing. But with that, I'd like to actually kind of bring on to the stage our panelists for today, who are wonderful guests. So we have Ryan Quinlan, who recently joined Zapier on the social media team. Prior to that, he was at Laudable. We have Alfredo who is the brand director at Cinch. And we have Justin Gutwein, who's the head of video marketing at Outreach. Welcome, fellas. How are you all doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. Yeah, super excited. I had to make sure I was off mute.
Perfect. It's okay. If you're on mute, we'll tell you. Someone will tell you in the chat or on stage, hey, turn on your mic. But I gave a quick introduction. I'd love you all to give like a 30-second introduction to yourselves. But at the same time, since the theme of today is Mindshare, I'd love to hear kind of what's captured your Mindshare lately. So we'll start with maybe Ryan. You want to kick us off on a quick intro and then just what's captured your Mindshare lately?
Happy to. Thank you so much. So I'm Ryan Quinlan. I work in social media at Zapier. That's relatively new for me. Before that, I was on the founding team of a startup called Laudable, which was focused on AI magic for call transcripts. We were actually acquired by in a joint venture between Zapier and Base AI, and now I am over at Zapier. And what's been dominating my mind share lately? MCP. For sure. Right now, it's all about AI agents and MCP and the way that this is drastically changing the way people work using AI.
Awesome. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, so Justin Gutwein, head of video marketing at Outreach. I've been producing B2B videos since 2005, 6, something to that effect. So almost 20 years. When like some of my first videos actually had to get encoded into Flash players and then put online because people had no way to like YouTube existed, but it was it was junk. It was cat videos and stuff, and then other platforms came along after. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. Also, filmmaker, made a bunch of documentaries and things like that. And I think the biggest thing on my mind right now in the video space online for B2B specifically would be the use of AI and the proper use of AI. Like what's actually going to be a flash in the pan, because I think there's a lot of things that you could do right now and you might get some quick wins, but over time, those things, like so many other trends, will fade.
Cool. And that actually is a blast from the past. I remember Flash. What was the other one? Like Dreamweaver. There's a bunch of like those tools that were out there back in the days. But
we
cool.
had a
Thanks for your
whole tech
introduction.
team enabled to like our video to get the videos on people's websites in 280p, 280
Oh,
pixels
wow.
wide. That was as
We've
wide
come a
as it
long
could
way.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, we've come a long way for sure. Cool.
In
And
other
then
words, I'm
the
old.
final
Anyway.
guest today. Yeah, and the final guest today is Alfredo. Alfredo, little introduction to yourself and what's captured your mind share lately.
Yeah, so my name's Alfredo. I'm the brand director at Cinch. Cinch is a 4,000 person publicly traded company, and I actually joined them through an acquisition. I was at a startup called Simple Texting that sold to SMBs. So I've kind of seen a wide range of scrappiness levels, from being like the one person marketer at a startup to now at a really large org with where I get to work with other people and additional resources. What's captured my mind share? I watch a lot of YouTube, and I've been thinking about storytelling on YouTube, and everyone should go look up Preston Goes. He just put out a 3-part video about turning a Japanese mini truck and converting it to ride on railroad tracks. And it's just like perfect video editing and storytelling that I'm so inspired by.
Awesome. That will be on my to-do list for later today then. Thanks for the recommendation. Cool. Well, again, like I mentioned, I'm excited to have all three of you here. This is going to be an awesome conversation. As the audience, as you probably have seen earlier today, we announced Recording Studio, which is why we're talking about recorded video, and that's why it's top of mind, getting our mind share today. And to set context, when we think of recorded video content, there's a lot of different kind of mediums to this and ways of kind of outputting recorded video content. But a lot of things that we're thinking through, as the poll mentioned, like the interviews, demos, point of view, talking head style video content. And our panelists have all done variations of this. And so I'm excited to kind of jump in with them just to share their expertise. And the place I wanted to start is essentially like how you're using recorded video today, what's working really well, and what's a use case you're really excited to test or expand to this year. And I'll start with Justin first. And I know I met with the group earlier, and they sent me a bunch of screenshots so that you can actually see visuals too. So I'll bring those up too as well, Justin. But I'd love for you to kind of kick it off for us.
Yeah, so recorded video, which actually now I'm thinking about it's a little redundant, but like a video is the most effective communication tool we have, really. It's as effective as talking to someone over a piece of, cake or some coffee or something to that effect. So my whole approach to especially B2B video is make it as personable as possible. And so like what you're seeing on the screen right now, there's actually 2 different videos. We use the same actor for it. But on the right is in the all white environment is our like what is outreach kind of video. We kind of did this Jenga thing where like it eventually falls if you don't use our product, obviously. And then on the left is actually an AI video where we had a couple scenarios where if you look, he's across the table from a little robot. And the idea being that as far as sales goes, AI can help in a lot of ways, which is one of the things Outreach is doing. But there are certain things that only salespeople can do. And so like at this point, the robot is not picking up the check at an executive like situation. So yeah, like again, like I've been doing this for like 20 years. Everything from your customer stories to webinars to this is another good example. So we have here on the right was a webinar we did about AI and embracing AI. So we had our CEO at the time, Manny, and then the CEO of RevShop, just having a very candid conversation for about an hour. Like we literally hit record and let them run and got not only this hour-long piece of content out of it, but multiple shorter pieces of content, which is kind of the key when you're doing these long-form stuff, is being able to break it down into the smaller stuff. And then on the left is last November, we did Explore 24, which was like a big product release kind of a situation, big announcement that we actually pre-recorded. And that's our current CEO, Abhijit, standing there. And the interesting thing there, I think, is like the conversation between doing a live event and a live event. So Explore kind of came off as a live event, but we actually had pre-recorded it about a month in advance to be able to kind of zhuzh it up, make it nice, try to make it as Apple as you possibly can on a budget, and then, kind of present that. But you also get your messaging a lot tighter in that kind of a situation. Then I think there was maybe one more. Yeah, so here we have on the left, so that's Grace Presnick, who's one of our best AEs at Outreach, in a series we call Outreach on Outreach, which is our best performing series by far, which is a weird combination. I did the same thing when I was at 6 Sense. We had a thing called 6 for 6, same idea, but it was how our people use our product, and it's insanely successful. Like, the engagement rates are out like beyond anything else, because it's not a demo, but it's kind of a demo, but it's more of like, here's how I use the thing every single day. And it's super effective. And then on the right is a customer testimonial, which, I mean, those always win. Like, you can't go wrong with a customer talking about how great you are.
Cool. No, these are great examples, and it really touches on kind of the variety of different kind of video content options that you have. And I think Alfredo, you have a bunch too that you kind of shared some of the screenshots on as well. So maybe we could jump into that. And then Ryan, I think you're going to share some too. Once we do that, maybe we can have a little bit more conversation around it too. But before we do that, Alfredo, you want to quickly just share some of the use cases you all are using right now at Cinch?
Yeah, I mean, we use video all over the place, thought leadership, customer stories. This series in particular, I'm excited about. There's a product that we're promoting called RCS, which I won't go into, but essentially it's SMS 2.0. It's this new protocol that soon everybody's going to start using. So we had the challenge of, we need to educate people about what this is. And there's so many people at Cinch who are really excited about this, and you'd be on calls with them and they would just naturally get excited about it. And everyone's working on different pieces, from the salespeople to the engineers to the marketers trying to tell people about it. So we decided, like, let's turn this into a vlog series where each one tells a story. So rather than kind of just doing like an explainer video, when we went to HubSpot's inbound, what we did was create a vlog, and the premise of the vlog is sort of, I'm going to HubSpot saying, there's this huge thing changing in marketing. Are people going to know about it? And then I talk to marketers, and of course they don't know about it. So then we show them, and then it's like, this one-to-one telling people at HubSpot isn't going to work. Let's get an LED truck and put it outside. All of this stuff was going to happen. All of our kind of out-of-home stuff was already going to be at this event, but by then leveraging recorded video at the event and telling it into a story, you now have a sales enablement material. You have this piece of content that you can leverage elsewhere. But again, going back to figuring out how we can tell the story, like, one thing I've been thinking about is, how can I create some level of stakes in a video? Like, this is why people watch White Lotus and Severance, is like, there are stakes. Building that into like a B2B video can be so much harder, but like, you can find little things. I stole this from this guy, Matthew Dix, who wrote this book, Storyworthy, that's great, where he says, like, start your video at the opposite, or start your story at the opposite of the ending. So we created a product that makes it really easy to register for RCS. So I thought, okay, if that's where we want to end, where it's really easy, can we start with showing how behind the scenes it's actually really complicated? So we got our engineers, and we did this kind of ridiculous montage where they're explaining all the technicalities of everything that has to happen behind the scenes to send these messages at scale. And then it sort of ends with like, but for customers, it's actually super simple. Here's this portal. And we make these really natural feeling vlogs, but it's all super planned out. Like, we have a doc where we say, okay, what are the exact beats we need to hit in the story. So even though when we go to film, it's kind of like loose and we're just kind of capturing these human moments with employees, in the end, we're putting it into a quite tight story. And then for distribution, we post them on YouTube. We then retell the story in a much kind of shorter piece of time as a short. And then we work with different subject matter experts internally, and occasionally we'll ghostwrite for them or have them write their own posts and distribute them on LinkedIn. So this is just I'm so excited about finding a unique way of promoting this product and telling the story. And video is like the cornerstone of it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing it. Yeah, I feel like the whole kind of going to events and being at events and capturing video content and recording video content while you're on the floor, chatting with folks it's like a big thing now. It actually came up in the prior session where I think Misha brought up at Inbound. There was a lot of folks doing that, like creators going around creating content on the floor. So it just brings more life to the actual conversation. So that's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that. Ryan, do you have anything you want to share or just talk through kind of how you all are thinking about using video content for your marketing purposes?
Yeah. I'll keep it super short because I know we want to open this up. So I'll hold on anything around repurposing, but I actually would love to show kind of an interesting example. Do you mind if I screen share real fast?
Go for it.
So video played a really, really interesting role in Zapier actually acquiring Laudable. And so this was, let's see, back in February. Last year, we actually targeted Zapier as a customer. They became a customer of ours and then ended up acquiring us. And in our targeted outreach, we actually created videos that were almost like sort of like ads for Zapier to sort of get their attention. This was a video that I actually put my dad in. Or at least like virtually, where I actually used Zapier to connect to Laudable and send him a text every time somebody said something nice about me that was recorded. Anyway, this
Brian,
went like
I think you're still showing the blog post actually.
Oh no, there you go.
Oh, there you go. I see it now. Yeah, there we go.
I forgot to hit share this tab instead. Thank you. And so this shows you kind of how we would feature different kind of prospects and things that we wanted to actually work with. They ended up becoming a customer, and then later on actually ended up acquiring us. So just kind of a fun example of how you can use fun and entertaining content to kind of go viral within a company. This is something that we've done as well, just to kind of promote Laudable previously. And I can show you some examples, or at least talk about some examples soon about kind of what we're doing at Zapier.
Cool, awesome. So that's just a lot of cool use cases and ways that you all and your teams are using video content. And I'd love to hear from you. Like we're on a live event right now. And there's a lot of great things about live events and having audience engagement, etc. But what are some of the advantages of actually kind of recorded video, like and doing these ahead of time and versus it being a live event like today? Alfredo, you want to kick us off on what you see as some of the advantages of recorded video?
I mean, you can definitely pre-plan the story in a way that's a lot easier when it's pre-recorded. I think you can still leverage storytelling in live events. And I actually had a couple screenshots from an event that Cinch put on last year called Email Camp, where we made the whole thing wrestling themed. And we had like illustrations of wrestlers, and like the person hosting the event was wearing a referee outfit. So like, I think there's other ways that you can inject creativity into live events to make the video stand out. But of course, when you're pre-recording, you can have a whole storyboard, and it just makes it easier to think it through at the beginning.
Cool. Justin, Ryan, any other thoughts on that?
I really believe in the power of just creative writing and really great script writing. That's something that I spend a lot of time on. That being said, I also improvise a lot in my own content personally. I find that like actually putting the thought in sort of allows me to kind of take some of those risks. I also think that's you gave it some great examples about like the sort of guerrilla style content that people are capturing at conferences. I think that's also a great way to approach something like that, which is go in with sort of a loose structure and narrative, maybe a couple things you want to get, and then allow some flexibility, allow people's personalities to come through, allow folks to improvise and kind of find it in the edit, right? I really love to kind of combine those two styles, especially in B2B content, works really well.
No, I agree with all that. I was just going to say that I think that when you record something, you have planned it, so therefore your story is much tighter and people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. Like we all got into podcasts and like, okay, I can do long form, but now we're kind of starting to shrink back, and like we're seeing that in the data of like people are not as interested in, just get to the point. Like I'm not. But the other thing that I think is really important about pre-recorded content is, especially in B2B, your talent is probably not professional talent. So being able to give them the relief of the pressure of like doing it live, like, okay, sorry, say that again, say it in your own words, say it like you can have the script, but also like Ryan was saying, riff, like make it your own thing. We'll try it a couple different ways so that you feel comfortable, so that the message gets out in a very authentic way. And then you have the ability to pick the right take essentially, and then put that out there and not say, hello, product marketer, Anand, like you now have to be on camera and be a camera personality. That's not what a lot of people actually signed up for in B2B marketing specifically. So like allow them to have that breath of do it again and not have to do it live. I think that's a really A, human, but B, important kind of situation when it comes to recorded versus live video.
Yeah, that's a great point. Go ahead, Alfredo.
No, I think that's so true. I hadn't really thought about how difficult it is to get kind of really authentic moments sometimes when there's an audience, right? Like I think probably, I haven't seen Ryan's video with his dad, but like parents who do not work in B2B marketing will just naturally be authentic because they're not thinking about it. And there's probably something magical about that being in the video. We work with an agency called Local Glimpse. I don't want to gatekeep our agency because they're so great. Ben at Local Glimpse. And he is not technically part of the company we're at, but he does a lot of the recording for us. And one thing he does that makes me cringe every time, but every time it gets good results, is when he's interviewing executives, the first thing he says, they like sit down, right? There's kind of this like formal vibe. And he goes, who the hell are you? And like it just breaks them every time. Like they're just not expecting someone to talk to them like that. And then they laugh. And then every time in the intro, there's this fun moment where you don't know that he asked that, but you see this CEO or someone who's otherwise normally, stressed out laughing. And you can really get those special moments, with pre-recorded video.
I'm hoping you capture like the reactions and you use that, because I'd love to see how like executives and leaders respond to someone asking, "Who are you?" But that's a great way to like kind of like loosen the stress and kind of the environment, and so that's a great tip. Thanks for sharing that. I actually want to double click on something that you all have just talked about a little bit here of like, so Ryan mentioned like scripted versus like kind of just going and recording, and like I'd love to kind of hear like what level of where do you need to have more scripted structure when you're recording a video versus like, hey, you're walking down the street recording something, or you're in front of your laptop going to record something like about a topic that you have top of mind, as well as like just even like for customer stories, which it sounds like a lot of you are doing video content for that as well. It's like, how do you define like, sometimes you have a customer on a webinar and you can use that, or you can have a lo-fi recording, or you can have a high production. You can send a whole production crew there to record them. And like, so like that is also the difference between like scripted versus like more authentic. So what's your take on that? How do you balance the different types of video content that you can create? Feel free anyone to jump in that has an initial take on that.
Well, I don't think that scripted and authentic are different necessarily. Like you should, even if you're scripting your content, it should be very authentic to your brand, to people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that if you are, the only time that I really script script, like write lines, is when we're doing like an ad. So like the AI video and the Jenga video that you saw things for, like that was a scripted ad that like, okay, actors say these things. There was a lot of glib and funny, I'm such a clever writer. So, lots of jokes in there, like that kind of a thing. But I think even when you're going to a customer, I like to go with bullet points instead of questions necessarily. So like, here are the facts that we want to get out. Like, you chose our company. These are some of the results. These were the problems that you were facing to begin with, get that story arc in there, but use those even as an interviewer. I've done like literally thousands of interviews in 20 years, but like use that as a conversation piece to get the things that you want, then find it in the edit versus here's the things that I want to say, because that never comes across as authentic. Like some people can write, again, like depends on who they are. Most customers that you're going to talk to probably aren't professional media individuals. Some C-level people have had media training, so you can throw a teleprompter in front of them and get what you want out of them. But most of the time, especially when you're talking to a customer, I would say go with agree on what the story is, and then naturally pull that story like you're having a drink with them or a coffee with them and chatting with them, kind of a thing.
Yeah, more conversational. That makes sense. Alfredo, Ryan, any other thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think deciding how to balance it, sometimes it's factors out of your control, like budget, right? Like you've got a certain amount of budget that you can spend if you want to highly produce some videos. Like I wish we could fly out to every customer's office and make it this awesome production, but like the reality is you can't. So I think on, at least for me, when deciding, okay, where are we going to place those resources, I think about like, is this a super interesting use case? Are they using the product in a unique way that other customers aren't? And so I want to put in the extra resources to tell this story. Of course, is it a big logo? Even sometimes I'll just think like visually, by going to their office, am I going to capture something interesting? Like we have a large shoe retailer who's a client of ours. And so I knew, well, if we go to their office, there's going to be something unique to show, right? We're not just going and then it's a bunch of cubicles and it's like, why? Or this could have been done over webcam. So I think those are some of the questions I ask myself when deciding, should this be scrappy and done over webcam, or should it be shot in person?
Yeah, that's great. And Ryan, what about you? Because I've seen your LinkedIn. You have a lot of these great like scrappy type of video content, but I feel like sometimes he has probably a lot of thought that goes into it as well, right? So what's your approach when it comes to like scripted versus just on the spot kind of record?
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to look like you don't give a shit, right? Sorry for cursing, but I think that's a good like lo-fi does not always mean low effort, right? Like I think that there are a lot of benefits to using lo-fi versus polished content. I also think that like it really depends on the customer. Like that's something that we do a lot at Zapier. We have different like styles of escalation for customer stories. And like there are definitely certain customers who we know would love to hop on with someone in leadership and just kind of riff for 30 minutes podcast style. We also have ones who we know would love to be featured and have their personal brand expanded by like an in-person video shoot. And so like spoilers, we'll probably not script, because I saw great comment here around like not really scripting out customer interviews. I think that's golden. Justin made the great point around using bullet points. I think that's really helpful. Something that I've found can work, especially if you've invested a lot of money into these big shoots and you need to make sure you're getting a couple of things, is have some example quotes. Like what's the dream? What are the dream quotes you'd love to hear from them, right? Know that you might not get that exactly, but I found when I've done these style of interviews, kind of knowing that is perfect. It helps me maybe reshape or say, all right, so what's the headline version of that? What's like the 10-second introduction version of that? And the other thing that I'll share, just like a little interview tip, is I love to bring them sort of into the edit. I find that's a wonderful way to get them to give you the answers that you want, right? Loved that section. Oh, that's perfect. We're going to use all that. I just need you to give me something to kind of close it out. I just need you to give me something to kind of introduce it. Maybe something like this, right? Really, really great way to sort of bring them into the narrative. You're by no means scripting it. You're just being very honest with them about sort of what you're looking for, and then they use their own words.
Yeah, that's great. That's go ahead, Alfredo.
Both Ryan and Justin have both touched on like interviewing techniques, and I'm sure, the more interviews you do, you start to build up this like secret set of tools that people don't realize you're using to get them to say certain things or to talk more. Like I tend to say, paint me a picture a lot, because if you say, what's the problem that our product solves for you, you will get like the shortest answer, versus like, paint me a picture of what was happening before you started using X product. Like you'll get a much more interesting, longer answer that gives you more to work with in the edit.
Yeah, and
cool.
in contrast, sorry, I was going to say, if you end up with the other thing where you've got a talker and you're like, damn, I've got a hard stop. I've got a hard stop in 20 minutes and we did not get the lines that I need. Again, that's the best time to bring them into the editing room with you. Make them feel extra special by like, help me here. So like, we're creating the narrative together, right? I need you to kind of help me get here, right? What do you think, right? How would you say that in 10 seconds in a headline, et cetera? And you can kind of combine these two styles, right, to kind of give you those transition pieces that are sometimes missing from customer stories when you watch them and they feel a little rambly.
Yeah, so there's been a couple
on the
couple
contrasting end. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Justin. I was actually gonna.
No, I was just gonna say
lead into your tip as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that like, you know, they say this in sales all the time as well. Like, you know, the best thing you can do is not talk. So like, as an interviewer, ask your question, whatever, and sometimes if you just give it a beat of silence, they'll get uncomfortable and then go. But like, it doesn't come across uncomfortable on camera because you can edit it, but like, there's just that moment of like, they haven't quite hit what you want, and then they're going to fill in the blanks for you, and then you can, you know, find it in the edit again. I do come from this. I understand, like, I actually am the guy with like, there's a bunch of camera gear in this, you know, closet over here, and like, I do all my own editing and all that kind of stuff. But like, you know, so like, I have that kind of benefit of making it a little messy and then cleaning it up and not costing extra dollars because I'm the one doing it. So I do understand that that's not the case for everybody.
For sure. So there's been 4 great tips here actually that I've heard. One is guide them through the edit, like walk them through it, try to get what you need out of their conversation. Ask them to paint you a picture because it helps kind of them explain things a little bit more. The other one that Alfredo mentioned is kind of like, I wouldn't say slap them across the face, but ask them something right off the bat that really kind of captures their attention and kind of loosens the mood a little bit too, of like, who the hell are you, is the example Alfredo gave. And then the one, Justin, that you just gave is just be okay with silence. Like, give it some breathing space for them to kind of continue talking and kind of elaborate more on what they were saying. Sometimes you try to jump in there too early and it kind of stops their train of thought, right? So those are all amazing tips. There was a question that came up that I actually wanted to touch on because it seems kind of relevant here, is how much does video quality matter? And can scrappy content still work in B2B? And we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I don't know if there's any additional kind of thoughts or context that you have around this idea of like video quality, scrappy content, especially in like the B2B space where sometimes you're kind of like, you think you have to be like buttoned up, right? But that's not always the case. But yeah, any takes on that?
Almost every single video that we created at Laudable, maybe even every single video, was created on an iPhone or on a webcam, and our entire marketing strategy was video driven. So it's definitely possible to do both. We did that intentionally. Like, we could have gotten better cameras. You know what I mean? Like, we did that on purpose because it really fit this sort of scrappy, overly communicative, bring you inside our world strategy that we were using. I am a huge believer in lo-fi content. I'm always just telling people, like, you know, just get it out there, just get it out in the world. Consistency is the most important thing.
And Ryan brought this up earlier, but thinking about the hook, you know, sometimes the quality doesn't matter as much as are you saying something interesting? Are you packaging it in an interesting way? You know, is there a concept to the video? Not that there's not room for kind of, you're walking to the coffee shop and you suddenly have a thought about B2B marketing that you want to post on LinkedIn. But I think the stuff that really stands out is, it's clever. even if it's scrappy.
No, I mean, I think everything should be shot in 8K or IMAX only, 75 millimeter. And no, I mean, like that's half my job is like making it look pretty. But like it doesn't matter how pretty it is. I think we're seeing this in modern Hollywood right now. It doesn't matter how pretty it is if the story's not good or the content's not good. So get it however you can get it. I think there does come a point like you don't necessarily do like a full-on ad on an iPhone. People do, like there are ways to do it, but like if you're just trying to, especially on that product level, this is kind of a little off field, but like as a video strategy, I always go from the bottom up. Most people like think you should start at the top of the funnel and work your way down. I think you should start at the bottom and build that foundation, so that very product focused, tangible things that are like helping your salespeople not have to have so many conversations because they can send this piece of content, and then work your way up. And then as you go up, the quality should probably go up a little bit. But if you don't have that ability, don't let that stop you from doing the thing. I think that's the most important. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I agree. I feel like there are levels, right? It depends on the goal and what you're trying to achieve. I create a lot of product walkthrough videos, and those are not high production, right? It's me on the screen. I use like Screen Studio sometimes, or now I use Recording Studio to do some of that work. But it's not, and I have a nice little camera and a mic, but like it's not anything too polished, right? So I agree that there's different levels based on what you were trying to achieve. So we have about 10 minutes here. So I want to start opening up some questions just because we had some come in, and there's one that that came in from Julia that I want to combine with another one. So her question is more about like, do you feel like it's repetitive when like there's the same representative from your organization that's showing up on the video content over and over again? It's continuously highlighted. And then another question that came in that kind of is in parallel to this is like, any tips to getting more people to volunteer to be on camera? Because I think Justin, you had mentioned like people in B2B did not sign up to be on camera, right? They're not actors, right? And so like, so those two questions, like how do you get more people to volunteer, but also is there anything that kind of feels like, people are getting deterred because it's the same people always showing up on the camera, on the videos?
Yeah, well, I think there's actually some value, depending on who the person is, to have like a consistent face, like that's almost like a host that's bringing you through until that person moves on, then you're totally screwed. But I have the absolute pleasure of working at a company that is a sales platform right now. So when I need people to be on camera, they're usually sales people who are on camera all day demoing the product anyway. So it's a pretty easy grasp. But like I would, talk to people, focus on the people that are into it. Like some people will volunteer, and some of them will volunteer and not be very good, but some people will be like, yeah, I'm always down to be on camera, like, and if they're good, like keep them in your back pocket constantly. But don't count out people, like, again, been doing this for a long time, and so many times I would do a customer story or some sort of story, and like the CTO was supposed to be on camera, and the head of marketing is always like, the CTO is like, they're kind of a nerd, they're whatever. They're not probably going to be great on camera, but what they're very passionate about is the technology they've built, and which is their point in the video. So when you start talking to them about the product that they built, they light up, they go full all in. Like, so find the right people to talk about the right things. Who are those, SMEs? There's such subject matter experts, and like really lean into that, because that's always going to be a win for the most part. Like I have had, and again, 20 years, like maybe 5 or 6 interviews that were just like, this person is like getting hives on their face. So it does happen, but like it doesn't happen nearly as much as you think it would.
That's a really, really good point. I wanted to jump in because I feel like that authenticity, like that, I feel like you can see that across like multiple types of platforms too. So like I think it's really, really beneficial to work with a select number of creators. And I'm actually seeing companies like Zapier start to treat internal evangelists like kind of manage those relationships almost like influencers, right? Where it's not just a bonus, but it's sort of an expected part of your job. And I think just like brands working with influencers, you tend to see the best results when that's a long-term partnership and when that person's following is very like interested in that message, right? And the story kind of feels authentic, right? Like if you look at TikTok, there's very much like a TikTok revolution happening right now where it's just getting hyper niche, right? Like I met this amazing Zapier customer who is like the king of like Architalk. Like he's like the architect on TikTok, and he's got millions and millions of followers, right? It's like we're starting to see that niche interests are actually starting to dominate traffic online. And so I love your point about how like get CTOs on camera. They might not feel like that's their strength, but what's working right now is passion and authenticity. And so like I know at Zapier, oftentimes our best performing videos are the ones from our CTO, Brian, or internal experts.
I love talking to sales engineers, and every time I talk to a sales engineer, I'm like, I never want to talk to an executive again because the sales engineers are so fun to talk to, and like I learn something every time, right? Because they're just so deep in the weeds. I want to answer Julia's question about do I feel like one person over and over people start to have fatigue. I have seen that at least on our LinkedIn, like, but I think one thing that we can improve is it's sort of like we do one long interview and then it's like, well, we have all this footage, we might as well cut it up into lots of clips. And then we kind of, it's not only is it the same person, you're seeing them in the same environment and you get the sense that it's from the same interview. And I do think people start to get fatigued. So I think recording in a different environment so the person like right away knows it's a different video, having a title card or something so that they know it's a different video than the last one they watched. That said, if you have a larger team and you can switch up who are the people front and center, I think it's nice to highlight multiple people behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's great. And I think like having the same type of environment is great when it's like a series, right? And you want to create that consistency, but then you also want to create differentiation when you have different types of videos that you're putting out in the market. So we have a few minutes here. So I want to quickly end with, if you could all like spend 30 seconds. There are a lot of folks who are still getting started with video content and they don't know where to start or what to do. If you had one simple use case or tip for them of what they can do this quarter to go make an impact with more video content, what would that be? Alfredo, let's start with you.
Look through your customer support chats, look through your gong calls, find the top 5 questions that customers ask, make a video explaining how to solve each one.
Love that. All right, Justin.
Well, I wouldn't say go through your gong calls. I'd say go through your outreach Kaya calls. But but yeah, very similar. Like that's a very like I worked for myself for a long time, like in between tech gigs in-house, and the first thing I would always ask is like, what is the question that your salespeople get asked over and over and over and over and over again? This is very similar to just content in general and like blogs and that kind of stuff. But like, make a video about that. It can be a screen recording. Like I said earlier, like we want to see people's faces. I showed the thing with outreach on outreach where we had like the thing over their shoulder. If you don't have the technical ability to do that, make just a screen recording with a voiceover. Just something is better than nothing, essentially. So I'd start there. Or if you're doing webinars, chunk those out and use those because you probably have lots of great nuggets in there.
Yeah, plus one for screen recordings for sure. That your little face in the corner of a screen recording, I find works wonders on LinkedIn. Number one piece of advice I can give you if you're looking to get started creating, get the bad videos out of the way. Okay, you're gonna make a couple. You're gonna make a couple clunkers. All right, we all have. You got to get them out of the way. It's just that simple. I find that something like
not me, but
Oh yeah, besides Justin, I find that a quick screen share is an amazing way to just knock something out pretty harmless. Doesn't take a lot of editing. And what you're talking about something that and you're passionate about. A+.
Yep. Awesome. This has been great. And the product demos, Recording Studio, go use it. You can actually use that to create those great screen videos with your face. Alfredo, Justin, Ryan, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate the time. This has been a lot of great insight that you've shared. Hopefully people have some tips and tricks of how they can get started with doing more video content out in the world and grabbing Mindshare with videos. So thank you again. We really appreciate it. And we'll have another session coming up. So everyone in the audience, please jump over to the next session. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.